Are you ready for another deep dive? Today we're exploring the world of enamellers.
Yeah, those artists who use powdered glass to make these amazing finishes on metal. You know, those really durable and often really beautiful finishes.
Powdered glass. I have to admit I'm intrigued already. So they're basically turning glass into a coating for metal. It's like art with glass dust.
Exactly. And it's incredible when you think about it. I mean, they're taking something as hard and cold as steel and turning it into a masterpiece using what's essentially glass dust.
That's wild. When I hear the word enamel, I think jewelry.
You're not wrong, but it's way more than that. We're talking about enameling on all kinds of things, steel, cast iron, things you wouldn't necessarily associate with this delicate artwork.
So it's like hidden art you find on everyday objects.
Exactly. And that takes us to what an enameler actually does. You need this unique blend of artistry and really precise technical skills.
Makes sense. You've got to have the creativity, sure, but then also the steady hand to apply that powdered glass.
It's a lot more than just a steady hand, though. They have to master these specialized techniques, things like cloisonne. They use these super thin wires to create tiny compartments for the enamel.
Wow.
Yeah, or champlevé, where they actually carve out sections in the metal itself, and that's where the enamel goes.
That sounds amazingly intricate.
Yeah, it is. And each technique creates a really distinct look. And it takes a lot of practice to master. Plus, you can play with different colors, different metal finishes, so the possibilities are, well, pretty much endless.
Okay, now I'm really picturing a master enameler at work. So where does this happen? I'm imagining like a small workshop, sunlight streaming in, maybe there's even a dog napping in the corner.
That's a great image. And actually, you're not far off. You'll find a lot of enamelers in workshops and studios, but it's a spectrum. I mean, some work in factories.
Factory, really?
Oh, yeah. They do larger scale production work, custom finishes for like architectural elements or industrial stuff. It's not always about creating these one-of-a-kind pieces.
That's fascinating. But that has to come with its own challenges, right? Working with that powdered glass in a factory setting.
You've hit on a big one. This job involves some pretty hazardous materials, high heat, sometimes dangerous chemicals. So safety is a big deal.
I can imagine. You don't want to mess around with stuff like that without taking the right precautions.
Exactly. If you're thinking about this kind of work, you need to know the risks and be ready to strictly follow safety protocols. No messing around.
Good reminder, safety first.
Yeah.
But this makes you wonder, are there even jobs in this field? I mean, is this a dying art, or is it something with a future?
That's the question, right? Is this a career on fire or on its way out? Well, get this, our source actually says there's a growing demand for this kind of work.
Really? Why is that?
It seems people want unique things, personalized pieces. That mass-produced stuff just isn't as popular. So skilled enamelers are really in demand because they offer those custom finishes and one-of-a-kind pieces people are looking for these days.
So it's a good time to be an enameler then, especially if you have your own unique style.
It really seems that way. But of course, like any artistic field, there are always two sides to every coin.
Oh, what's the downside?
Well, there's a lot of talented people out there who are probably attracted to this line of work for the same reasons.
So there's a lot of competition.
There can be, yeah. Our source makes it clear that you need to specialize if you really want to stand out. And I don't just mean like focusing on a single technique or style. You have to constantly be learning and pushing your craft forward.
So it's not enough to be great at this. You have to stay ahead of the game.
Exactly. You need to find new ideas, experiment, and figure out what skills and perspectives will set you apart.
That makes sense. So we've covered the skills needed, the work environment, even how competitive it is to make it in this field. But let's get down to it. What are the pros and cons of being an enameler?
Well, our source is really clear about that. And I'd say there's a lot to be excited about as long as, you're realistic.
Hit me with the good stuff.
Yeah.
What are the perks?
Well, the creative freedom is a big one for a lot of people, I think. You're turning metal into your canvas and using powdered glass to make your vision a reality. I don't think a lot of careers give you that kind of creative outlet.
That does sound really rewarding. What else?
Your work can be recognized for its artistic value. This isn't just about making practical stuff. Some enameled pieces are considered fine art. Imagine your work displayed in a gallery or part of some amazing private collection.
Okay, yeah, that's something to aspire to. But like you said, every coin has two sides. What about the not-so-great parts of the job?
Right. It's not always easy. Our source is really upfront about the training required. You can't just become a master enameler overnight. It takes serious dedication, maybe even some investment in training.
Right. What about finding work?
That's another thing our source points out. The number of jobs out there really depends on where you are. a big city with a good art scene, you might be in luck. But if you're in a more rural area, it might be harder to find work.
That's a great point. Location, location, location. And of course, we can't forget about the health hazards we were talking about.
Exactly. It's just part of the job, so it's not for
It
everyone.
makes you think. You've got the cost of training, the job market, and then the safety concerns. It's a lot to consider.
It is. But for some people, those with that artistic passion who really love the technical and the artistic combined, well, it can be an amazing career. It's all about deciding if it's the right fit for you.
You're right about that. Speaking of careers, how do you actually become an enameler? It's not like one day you wake up and decide to be one, right?
Haha. I wish it were that easy. No, it takes time. The source actually breaks down the typical career path into stages, starting with entry-level positions.
So what does that look like?
Okay, so imagine this. You just got your first job at an enameling studio. You're helping the more senior artists, learning by doing, getting comfortable with the tools and techniques.
So basically a lot of grunt work, but you're getting great experience.
Right. It's all about getting those core skills. Then, as you start to get the hang of it and you have more confidence, you might get promoted to a junior enameler.
And what does that involve? More responsibility. What does that involve? More responsibility.
Definitely. Yeah, as a junior enameler, you get to start working on more of your own projects. And you might even work directly with clients on their designs. So you're developing your own style and building a name for yourself.
Moving up in the world.
Exactly. And if you keep learning and growing, you might find yourself as a senior enameler one day.
Now that sounds like someone at the top of their game.
Totally. You're not just making things anymore. You're leading a team, mentoring new enamelers. And you're really pushing the boundaries of the craft. Plus, you've probably got gallery owners knocking at your door wanting to show off what you can do.
That's amazing. You know what? This whole deep dive has been incredible. I have to be honest, before we started, I thought enameling was kind of a niche thing, maybe even a little old-fashioned. But now I see it so differently.
That's what I love about these deep dives. We uncover these hidden things, and suddenly there's this whole world of possibilities.
For sure. And talking about possibilities, there was this part in the source about specialization. They had a whole breakdown of the skills needed. And get this, 72% was about production and processing knowledge.
Yeah.
That's way more technical than I would have thought.
Right. We think about art and artists as being driven by inspiration, which is true, but then there's this whole other side. That deep understanding of the materials, the process, even math is involved. So it's really this amazing combination of the creative with the technical that makes this such an interesting career.
It reminds me of those music documentaries where they go behind the scenes and you realize how much business sense you need to make it as a musician.
Yeah. You need to understand how the industry works, the market, the business side of things. And speaking of navigating things, we have to mention those interview tips in the source.
Oh, for sure. This is where RoleCatcher really helps people. They have this whole section on how to totally nail an enameler interview with actual questions they might ask you.
So helpful, especially if you're just starting out. Imagine going into an interview and feeling totally prepped and confident. That's what's so great about having these tips.
It's like having a cheat sheet. And RoleCatcher goes even further. They link to tons of other useful resources too. Guides, information about similar jobs. It's like they're saying, okay, now go out there and explore. See where else this takes you.
It's all about making connections and seeing what you discover. Who knows? Maybe this deep dive got you interested in something totally different. Remember those career guides I mentioned? Filigree maker, jewelry design.
Wow, yeah. Filigree, that intricate wire work is incredible.
Yeah.
I can definitely see the connection there with enameling.
Exactly. There are so many possibilities out there. It's not about finding one perfect career. It's about finding what you're passionate about and where your talents lie.
Couldn't have said better myself.
And with that, I think it's time to wrap up our enameling adventure. A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this amazing world. And to all our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the deep dive and that it gave you some inspiration for your own journey.